Truth. Hello, I'm Kate Laster, and for my entire conscious life, I've identified as an artist. By definition, I make art. And that art's taken all these different shapes and forms through painting, visual storytelling, and spoken word. But it's the one anchor in a life marginalized by giant change that I've been able to keep steady on. And I tried making this presentation to figure out a linear way to tell you my hero's journey or my life goal, but it's really hard because these huge details are fractions, are fragments of who I am. I could tell you that I was raised in a family fiercely bound by love that valued the written word, that practiced iambic pentameter at our dinner table. I could tell you that my stomping grounds at 13 were Barrow, Alaska, that I've been honored to work at the Canvas at Reach, at CARES, bringing artwork inside and outside, that I've had art shows in Juneau, a community that values art at such an extreme level, I was surprised when I moved here. But really, when we're talking about ourselves as artists, the first place to go is our art. Is these important ways we're trying to document things. Art is documentation, and it can be found in different ways. It's the step after the moment, the relapse, the echo. I'm drawn to every possible way to express that. I'm constantly looking for things outside of my own world, outside of my own mental state to make art. One of the biggest draws for me as a kid from Barrow, going to Seattle and seeing street art. Street art to me is so essential because it's ephemeral. There's layers upon layers. This piece was only up for a week and then it was gone. It was covered up by something new. A term in painting is pintamento, underpainting. Constantly these images are peeking out under a new image. I love that. I'm drawn to so many artists, but someone I carry in my heart constantly is Kathy Kollwitz, who is such a command of figurative art, of gesture and slight exaggeration of the human form. I am so moved by her art and herself as a person, that she worked as a doctor, not only as an artist. That is inspirational. I love German Expressionism, so when that comes into my own work, I'm pulled by figures of complex emotional tugs. I love Alfred Hitchcock. I have probably seen Rear Window 15 times. To me, the idea of being trapped in an apartment with a sense of observation on the human world was so over-the-top compelling to me. It's what I was drawn to as an artist. It's something that compelled me. People watching. Later, I would end up reading Steppenwolf, which is a story that embodies that urge to watch people at night through windows. A little creepy, yes. But I loved that. I loved that idea of people watching, observation. Art is documentation. Even if that art becomes surreal and beautiful and romantic, the documentation of an emotion is something I aspire to and, of course, go to Chagall for. Chagall captures that romantic gravity that is gone, that makes us rise up, even though he fully captures the magic of beneath us, where we're from, the shtetl, the village. All those elements are present in his art. As a cartoonist, I've been looking for comics that actually mean something to me, either by women or about women. That's something that I didn't know immediately existed in comics. Moomin, The Tale of One Bad Rat, Mouse, these were all stories that just moved me. And then, you know, as someone born in the age of the 90s, I had access to so many artists Not just artists in heavy coffee table books, but artists on the internet, artists on Wikipedia. There was so much I could go to. Video games, images, advertisements, everything was an image to grab and learn from. Myst was a game as a kid I loved because it was problem solving. And now, being at UAS, I see some similarities in the environment. At UAS, I've been so lucky to meet some kindred spirits. I've met David Woody, who is by far one of the most important teachers I've had in my entire life. As an artist, he has motivated me, but most importantly, I took his life drawing class, which as an artist is the most fundamental, important skill to have, the architecture of the human form. It's fundamental. It's absolutely a key focus. And because of David Woody, I was able to go that line between illustrative work and documentation life drawing into comics. David Woody let me make comic books in his class. And that feeling of making a comic book for the first time is elation. It's wonderful. It's so compelling that I had to keep doing it. And it had to be bigger and better every time. I realized that comic books to me didn't have to be the same kind of stories that would be on, a Sunday morning cartoon or be superheroes. These stories could be quiet. They didn't have to be wordy or verbose. They could be minimal. They could be expressive in ways that had ambivalence. It could be sad and happy. I love comics because sequential art has to maintain a movement, an idea. Drawing from printmaking and painting was important to me also. Fine art could find its way into visual storytelling. And one of the stories that I wrote was The Man with the Hole in His Head, which in essence explores intellectual Judaism and the fear of memory loss in a fable, in a story, in a way that was totally secular and relatable, at least on my side. These were stories I wanted to express, and I thought comics were perfect. In my sculpture, I'm bringing elements like that into the three-dimensional world. The recycled golem is in fact a story from Jewish folklore that I loved about a creature that was made from every possible bizarre, weird resource. And in my kind of version of this story, he's made from garbage and has to be a custodian his entire life. I love that in this story, a word activates the golem, truth. When I'm making sculpture, it has to be related to that theme of layers and mixed media and identity from the past. I love Thutmose' sculpture of Nefertiti, and I wanted to make it unique and bizarre. When I'm making two-dimensional art, I'm still going for that odd use of media and utensil and an arsenal of ink, exploring things with layers. I guess I have to tell you about my notebooks. Oh, the notebooks. I have an almost compulsive need to document the world around me, notebook in hand. And that was found in a sense of constant documentation, of looking out the window, of people watching, of trying to figure out after it happened, what happened. These are sort of my anchors, sort of my horcruxes. Any kind of important idea somehow seeps through me onto the page. These are the beginning of stories. These are the beginnings of how I could process an emotion. Catharsis is part of my process, and I always, always carry a notebook in hand. And you might have noticed this. I love poetry. I love spoken word. That ekes into my art. I'm always ready with a poem, mixing it with art. I've been lucky to be part of the Juneau poetry scene. I've made art for them. I've been moved by them, and I'm always shocked when people are so willing to accept art in different forms. I love it. Of course, when I'm adding storytelling or poetry to art, it's not like they're separate identities. They're part of the same piece. And when I'm making printmaking, it's very similar. I want to include that layer, collage, anything printed on a new surface, combining them together. It's removing it from the intimacy of my notebook, but still having that lingering effect of who I am. Portraits. I love portraits. They're so important to me because I'm always trying to figure out a person, trying to go back to that architecture of their face, read them, know them. And when I get to paint or draw or sketch someone, it's a way of conversing with them I wasn't aware of. One of my favorite painting teachers, Dane Cherzis, told me of a crazy idea to draw myself every day, to paint myself every day, to figure out ways of figuring out who I am, tightening up my hand, knowing my face. Part of me believes in an everyday reincarnation. When you draw yourself, even if it is a little obsessive compulsive, every day you're beginning the day as an artist. I'm ending my 4th year at UAS on a high note. I've been so lucky to know kindred spirits and make art and be exposed to different viewpoints and different artists. I will always be making art. I'll always have a notebook in hand. And hopefully continuing to grad school, I'm ready. I'm ready to explore new ideas on the page. Thank you.